and Dr. Clyde will be in just a minute as well to share with us. What we do on this particular show is we engage in a biblical theological vantage point first of all. It's the very first thing that we do. We're interested in how we think Christianly about everything. And so in this particular case, we're interested in small business from a Christian vantage point. And I wanted to point out and mention to folks that actually this Sunday, I am doing a whole series this fall at my church, Crossroads Community Church, up in Fishers, Crossroads Community Church. I'm doing a fall series on thoughtful Christians in culture. And what we're doing there is establishing a biblical framework for how we ought to think differently as Christians. That was the first 3 weeks. You can go to mini.org.com to find out about what I had to say about those things. But in this particular week, this upcoming week, I'm going to be dealing with the issue of business. And from a decidedly Christian vantage point, I've actually gotten a great number of questions from some of the folks in my class. About 70 folks come to this class every Sunday. But for those of you in Radio Land or watching Facebook Live or YouTube Live, you can catch up with us actually online. Again, go to ComeniusInstitute.org or .com, and you can find that particular series, Thoughtful Christians and Culture there. There are 3 videos already up. If you have any questions on that, or you'd like to pursue that a little bit more with me, highlight that kind of discussion with me for whatever reason, just connect with me either on Facebook Messenger, shoot me an email at echo1957. Happy to do that, and that's at Gmail, echo1957@gmail.com, and would be happy to engage any kind of question, discussion, concerns that you might have about those kinds of things. Always want to, every single week, give a shout out to our mom. HB and I are sons of this lovely lady in Denver, Colorado, Littleton, Colorado. Her name is Virginia Echo. Thank you very much, Mom, for every week watching and considering what we have to say and inviting a whole bunch of other folks there from Littleton to join us. Thanks for that. We actually have a large viewing audience in Colorado. Not to mention around the world, you can actually access this channel, RadioNext.tv, at the Cool Groove site around the world. And so we have any number of folks watching us at any given time, listening to us at any given time, simply because we're on internet radio. One of the great things about internet radio is the opportunity to not simply be land-based. I know that every land-based station now has their own app, and you can listen to them anywhere. But one of the great things that internet radio did and continues to be the pioneer in is actually establishing a presence on the net wherever around the world, and you can take us any place, pick us up anywhere. So this is a Comenius Institute sponsored show. Quickly, I'll mention again what I do every single week, and that is what bridges we cross at Comenius. At the Comenius Institute, we cross 3 bridges. The first is into college at IUPUI, helping Christian students think Christianly about their subjects. Actually, right after the show today, I'm going down to meet with a number of them over lunch. And we do that every single week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, as students are available and we get opportunities to do that. I also might add that this week is a kind of a special week. This evening, I'm actually going down to the south side of town to connect with folks at Life Point Church down there on the south side of Indianapolis. And I'll be there with 40, 50, 60, whoever shows up, college students from around Indianapolis, folks at Indianapolis University, IUPUI, Marion, and so on. Some of the folks that are being ministered to there at Life Point Church under the leadership of Nate Gast. So I'll be down there this evening, be starting my teaching down there at about 9 o'clock tonight. It's going to be a late night, and then turn right around and go back down to school at IUPUI in the AM. So that's at college. I love working with college students. If you know of college students who need this kind of interaction from somebody who not only cares about them as young people, sees them as the next generation, cares what they have to say and think, but also you think that maybe there might be an opportunity to engage faculty, to engage staff, to engage whomever on the college campus, I would be happy to be contacted again about that. You can contact me also through my IUPUI address, which is Meckel, that's MECKEL, at iu.edu, iu.edu. So the second bridge we cross is into communities. We're doing that right now. Many of you are liking us, waving at us, shooting us messages here already. Forgive me for those of you who shoot messages to me during the radio broadcast. I don't have enough hands to deal with all of the connections, but happily wave back at you and then reconnect with you later on. Of course, we've got the podcast later on, and what we do after the show is over, we have a great tech specialist. His name is Josh Collingwood. He puts up all the streams for us. All of these things go into iTunes. So then we broadcast and replay our Facebook Live, YouTube Live, which is going on right now. And then also our focus is in the podcast. So you can listen to us, do that kind of thing, do your earbud bit. But we do this community thing every single week on Wednesday morning from 10 until noon, inviting people from around Indianapolis who are doing good, who are Christians. And this week, as I mentioned, we have John and Tiffany Dearman coming in, small business owners on the west side of Indianapolis. They're also going to be back next week. This is the very first time I've ever done this, by the way, in over 2.5 years of this broadcast. Actually bring somebody back the next week because they have some very interesting and important ideas to share outside of the small business world that they're in. So John and Tiffany will rejoin us next week. And then, and you cannot miss this, the week after that, the 17th of October, my man, my twin, H.B. Bell, Jumbo Love's birthday. He is turning the big 6-0. He's got a big smile on his face over there through that plate glass window. Looking forward to celebrating his birthday on Wednesday, October 17th. We are inviting the world down to the plate glass. Come on down, bring your gifts, bring your donuts, bring your cupcakes, celebrate HB's birthday, the big 6-0. So community, the second bridge. The third bridge is into culture. Culture, we are investing from a Christian point of view in lots of different arenas. I engage this on a regular basis in all kinds of writing that I do. For instance, the last journal article that's about to be published is on the abolitionist movement, the theological roots of the abolitionist movement. That's coming out through Integrite, which is a journal of faith learning integration, and that's coming out through Missouri Baptist University down in St. Louis. And then this month also, in a few weeks, we are having an opportunity to speak at Marian University, and the title of my lecture talk there to English students on the 30th of October at Marian University is Evil Shares Our Bed, and the emphasis is going to be on what does the curious mind, unbridled knowledge bring to human beings. We'll be studying some romantic and gothic horror literature during that particular presentation show. So shouts out to Dr. Norton over there at Marian University, Brandy Worrell, who set this up. We're really grateful for that opportunity. So we're going to take a one-song break, just introducing the show. And when we come back, we'll begin the discussion of how we think Christianly from a very decidedly biblical point of view about not just small business leadership, but how do we establish some of those business principles? You're listening to Warp and Woof Radio at RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site. We'll be right back. So for those of you sticking with me here, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, glad to have you. Thank you for joining us here today. Dr. Clyde will be rolling in here at any moment, any time. One of the difficulties that I have in this using my phone actually for Facebook Live is that I can't take text messages. So I'm always hoping that nobody, especially Dr. Clyde, isn't trying to text message me here at this particular time. So thanks for hanging in there with us. I was serious about coming out to Crossroads Community Church. If you're at all interested, this Sunday at 10 o'clock is when I do my teaching there, Crossroads Community Church. If you take I-69 north to exit 210, head toward the hospital, and about half a mile past the hospital is where our location is. I'll be teaching there at 10 o'clock. And as I mentioned, Josh Collingwood will be taking care of the videotaping. Also wanted to mention really somebody who's very important to this broadcast, as well as to Comenius, which is Polly Riddell. Thank you, Polly, ever so much for your constant connections. Actually, it's Polly who brought forward the opportunity to be with the Dearmans. And so I'm grateful for her connections. As far as I'm concerned, I call her my CCO, even though at the moment we need to find the funding for that position, which reminds me, this is a nonprofit. Thank you very much. So go to ComeniusInstitute.com/partners and check us out there and start donating to this particular nonprofit. You will be contributing not simply to this community event that you see here in front of you on the radio, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, podcast later on through iTunes, but you're also contributing to the base of what allows this platform to exist for us. Folks like Polly Riddell, who do all kinds of great work on our behalf, and the kinds of work that she does is really very important and beneficial for us. So I always want to give a shout out to Polly, and of course Josh. Josh just put together the documentary for Comenius, which I think is finished, and we're looking forward to that. And by the way, HB, this is something that you and I have to talk about, maybe finding a venue for that documentary.
Yeah.
And see what we can do about that.
Okay.
So, yeah, think that through with me. I appreciate it.
Oh, no doubt.
So one of the nice things about having this particular little cubicle is that I'm so close to HB's desk over on the other side, I can actually talk to him, which is kind of nice. So here we are. We're emphasizing, again, small business this week and business principles, and we'll begin in the book of Proverbs, which is where we always like to start. Book of Proverbs is very important to us. We want to gain universal wisdom from the book, and that's going to be always important for us. So for those of you who are wondering where we get our information from, where did you find that? Where did you connect with those ideas? From my vantage point, it will always be from Scripture. I believe Scripture to be the authoritative Word of God. And not only that, but a really profitable way to live life, actually, based on the principles. So even if you're not a believer, honestly, if you abide by the principles of Proverbs, those are some really excellent perspectives on life and very helpful in day-to-day living. Of course, that's the temporal. Then, of course, we would have to have a discussion about the eternal, and I'd be happy to have that discussion with anybody as well. Always grateful for the opportunity to talk in these kinds of terms. I want to give a plug again to this particular radio show, RadioNext.tv at the Cool Group site. I don't do this thing alone. Honestly, I drive up here 10 minutes ahead of the show. HB sets me up. We're all good to go. There is no lag time. I don't have any concerns or problems about what's going to happen next. It just moves, and it's a wonderful thing. For those of you who are interested in this kind of marketing, branding, getting your word out there, your message, your communication line, please do contact HB. HB is one of these guys who's been doing this thing for 7 years. He really is the pioneer, honestly. A lot of people are copying what he has done in years that followed, but he's the one who really set the standard for this. So check him out, HB Bell. He's the one who you want to contact about your radio show and getting yourself on the podcast. Honestly, the opportunity that we have far outweighs, as far as I'm concerned, far outweighs the cost of this particular show. It's a marvelous opportunity. We have great respect around the community. Folks talk about us even during the week, mention the radio show, hey, who's going to be on the show this week, that kind of thing. So we're constantly getting interaction from people in and around Indianapolis. And as I suggested, honestly, it's not just Indy, but it's around the world, around the United States. Really, really happy to be engaged with folks everywhere. I see my mom saying hello. Hi, Mom. How you doing today? I'll be calling you later on. Call Mom every day after the radio show on my next drive, wherever I'm driving to. So we have a set schedule. As soon as I'm out of here, as soon as I pick up the podcast, the streams, we keep this thing going. And Mom tells me about her views of the guests. It's really great. Love Mom. Thanks, Mom, for always being there for us. I sent you an email this morning, by the way. Check that out. And I mentioned earlier about HB and his birthday coming up the 17th. So we're getting all that set up and ready to go. So we're about to come back online here. For those of you following the visual verbal, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, podcast is about to continue here in just a moment. Thanks for hanging in there with us, for enjoying this morning with us. Here is Dr. Clyde. He's pulling up here to the window, about to enter the stage. Morning, brother. We're just coming in off break. Oh,
Thursdays meeting 2 past 9.
Oh my. Yeah, bring it right around.
2 past 7.
Man, I'm sorry.
I've been here actually for 9 years.
Okay. And we are back, Warp and Woof Radio, RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site. And here, right next to me now, Dr. Clyde Posley. Here we are back again, doing our thing, which we do every Wednesday.
Good morning.
10 until noon. Thanks, as always, brother, for being here. Always grateful for your presence and, quite frankly, for the opportunity that Dr. Clyde has to minister to people in and around Indianapolis. Does great work in that. And, of course, your pastoral skills are beyond compare, brother.
I'm honing them.
Yeah. There you go.
It's like a true a medical doctor. I'm honing. He's constantly practicing.
There you go.
Constantly practicing.
There you go.
Unfortunately, there's so much material.
He's got the shepherd's crook right over his shoulder right now. You just don't see it. It's right there metaphorically. As far as I'm concerned, he's the man. Does great work at Antioch Baptist Church here in Indianapolis. So this morning, as I've been mentioning here, and look at this. Okay, here we go. Before we get to it, folks, the man has just laid it down. The book is out. His brand new book, More Than Icons and Images. And I'm assuming this is my signed copy.
No, it's not.
All right, well, you're going to sign it, though.
Absolutely.
All right.
I have one for you.
All right, good. My man is here with his new book. This is really cool. I'm really pleased for you.
I didn't think we were going to live to it. We'll talk about it
later.
No,
man, that's all right. I'm excited for you. See this big smile on my face? Anytime somebody writes something, I think it's a grand victory. So
writing expands the mind.
Isn't that the truth?
Always.
Yeah, and you're going to be bringing that message next week to my class, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I'm honored to be there. I'm honored to be there.
Yeah, and you get a chance to plug the book there too, man. I didn't even think about that.
That's a good idea.
Yes, it is.
That's a good idea.
I'm
more than that. I'm excited. I love young minds.
Yeah.
I like their questions.
Yeah.
I like how they are logical without knowing it. They just need to be taught how to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
that's what we're doing.
About that.
Actually, this next paper that they're working on which is due that day. So what we do is that day the paper is due, and then we spend the first 45 minutes of class talking that through and what did they find out and so on.
The paper is due on the 9th.
The 11th.
Is that the 11th? That's Thursday.
That's the Thursday. You're coming in on Thursday.
So what is the subject?
So the subject is you. So what I want them to do is I want them to see somebody who speaks, somebody who writes, somebody who is an MLK scholar, somebody who has an interdisciplinary degree, somebody who's got a PhD, and somebody who's prominent in the community, which is, I think, a marvelous and an important thing.
You must be inviting somebody else.
Come on, man, I'm plugging you all the time. Come on now.
I'm excited to be there.
It's going to be great. And seriously, for those of you listening here to this is a really great opportunity. The first time I did this for the first paper back in September, I had Mr. Larry Smith from the Tobias Leadership Institute. One of our guests. Yeah. And of course now, because we're co-hosts on this particular show, I wanted you to be there to give your expertise. Let them ask you questions.
Absolutely.
I think that's going to be wonderful and good. Absolutely. And we're going to get HB in there on the third paper. So that'll be in November at some juncture. And want him to get in there because his communication skills are beyond compare in terms of what he's been doing for 7 years on the radio. So this is really quite something. We want to emphasize good people around Indianapolis. So congratulations on the book, man. That is seriously cool news, man. Really cool news. I love it when anybody writes anything. It's a marvel.
Thank you very much.
So to the subject at hand for today, which is small business, entrepreneurialism. Quite honestly, guys like Dr. Clyde and myself, we have an entrepreneurial spirit. We may not be able to give our full attention to an entrepreneurial issue or
as the world might label it.
Yeah. But we have that spirit. That is, we really care about it. We care about. I don't believe in a box, so I always talk about what box leadership. There is really no box. We're just out there doing our thing as God has given us gifts and so on to do. So maybe that's where we can start this discussion here today with the issue of giftedness and the need, I think, for us to help people to remember that the kinds of things that they have within them to do what they do don't come from them.
They don't come from them. Absolutely. They have to. Well, God puts it in us. And whether we want to embrace it or accept it or not, we are God's creation. He made us as he desires. And so he put in us the ability to accomplish purpose and the gifts and talents. And this is even before we know him. In terms of the gifts, the Bible said the gifts and callings of God are without repentance. And so within us is even the those of history who have chosen to be evil. They have perpetuated evil, performed evil with godly gifts. If I can say that, I hope that comes across.
No, absolutely.
I'm not saying God had anything to do with the perpetuation of the evil.
Right. Yeah.
As much as I'm saying they took something God gave them and didn't connect with God, and so they used it with the human mind only and not by the Spirit of God.
Yeah,
that's dangerous. And so we all have these abilities, these gifts, and we can develop talents to become entrepreneurial. But a bigger question is why? So that we can glorify God, so that we can help implement the kingdom of God on earth. And when we do not connect those gifts and talents with God to his glory, we suffer. Doesn't mean we don't get rich, doesn't mean we don't become famous, but we suffer whenever God has given us something that we do not dedicate to him for his service.
And this really goes back to the issue of that Ecclesiastes 3 passage that God's placed eternity in the hearts of men, because you can't fill a round peg hole with a square peg.
Right. That's a great, an extreme example, and that of taking what God has given you and reconnecting it with God and then being blessed behind it. An extreme example of what can happen, a great example of what can happen, is in Matthew chapter 14. As you know, I preached a revival last week, and then I had to preach out of town Sunday morning.
Okay.
And so I was wrestling with this man. I had prepared this, what I thought was a well thought out message. I'm on the highway. The Lord tells me to preach this message that I preached before, and it's called Break the Box. And I won't get into that much as much as I will talk about the fact that this woman took this alabaster box, this expensive box, and the expensive spikenard, and she broke the box, the contents of the box, on the head of Jesus Christ. For the point I'm trying to make here, in verse 9, Jesus says he was so impressed with her taking her resources and buying something, using it to develop something precious, and then break it on him, that he says something that you don't find elsewhere in Scripture. He says, because she has done this, in verse 9, everywhere this gospel is preached in the whole world, I want her spoken of as a memorial for what she has done.
Wow.
Jesus eternally connects her on earth with the gospel's preaching because of her taking her resources and dedicating them to the glory of Christ. That's what can happen. That's the type of thing that God wants to do when you commit what he has given you to his glory.
Yes, absolutely. This is a marvelous message here, just laying the groundwork really for what we do, the giftedness that God has given to us,
and how we steward it.
There you go. So maybe there's the next place to go, since you mentioned the term, which is the issue of stewardship. So when we think about stewardship, we're talking about taking care of that which has been given to us, but also multiplying from it. So for instance, the famous talents passage, this has been preached on, I don't know how many times, I'm sure. But the concept, of course, is that if you've been given something, you're responsible for it.
Right.
And if you're responsible for it, however much you've been given, you're responsible for that much.
Right.
So, for instance, tonight I'm going to speak to a bunch of college students down the south side of Indianapolis. I was mentioning this before you came in, and it'll be about 50 young college students there. And I'm going to be talking about student as vocation. That is, their job right now is to be a student. That's their work. So what I'm going to be
steward that,
and to steward that. And so there it is. How do you use that which you've been given? So you and I have had the opportunity of going through PhD studies. We've earned these degrees. Now we bear that responsibility that goes along with that degree to take care of that which has been given, but also to produce from it.
Exactly, and to cause it to be more than it was when it was given to us.
There it is.
That's one of the core principles of the talent parable of which you spoke. That the landowner was not happy.
Yes.
When he got back and found that one of his servants had not multiplied, expanded what he had been given. He was not happy. He punished him.
Yeah.
Because he said, listen, you should have known. I expected to come back and find more of a gift than the gift I left you with. And that's a good example of what God is looking for by giving us principles of entrepreneurial and what you said about that student, that students, that is huge.
Yeah.
Because a lot of young people who are students see school as only monotonous and only drudgery.
Yes.
But it is, and some of them don't realize that the reason they don't get better jobs after school is because God operates by his own principles. If you have not been faithful over little, he is not going to make you ruler over much. So if you half kick, let's just say,
go ahead,
through school, then it's unjust to even ask God for some great expansion into this world's workforce and industry because he is going to say now, whether he says, do you hear him say it or not, he's going to look at you now. Did you get up for time? Did you get up on time for class? Did you seek to study? Because you're going to have to get up on time for this work, and you're going to have to study their policies, and you are going to connect until you become the entrepreneur. Till it's your company, you're probably going to have to work in a company and cause another man to increase in wealth, so you learn how to manage wealth.
Yeah.
And so you are increasing in your wealth in your studies. If you haven't done it at this level, so you're actually working on your entrepreneurial wealth in college.
Yeah.
You got to start your stewardship as a student.
And that really takes discipline. One of the things that I say to students regularly is there are two principles of life, two pillars, I call them. One is gratitude, that you thank somebody outside of yourself for what's been given to you. But then there's also discipline, which comes from within yourself. So you bear responsibility not only for what's been given to you, but now the responsibility to take care of that which has been given to you. And so this is crucial. So for all of my students, for instance, who have gone on, they're now in their 40s, they have their own kids, and they write to me and they say, I'm so thankful for the discipline that you put into me when you graded my papers and when you corrected my grammar and when you made me write even when I didn't want to write, you know, all of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. That is so true.
Yeah.
That is so true.
So if there are any students out there listening right now, or later on, you see the archived bits that we put together here, remember this concept. That indeed your responsibility right now is to begin to lay the groundwork for the rest of your life. And so even one of the principles that I'm suggesting here this evening when I teach is that study precedes work, that diligence precedes the entrepreneurialism, that the basis for how we live the rest of our lives then comes because of this essential, and I don't know that I would really even care to suggest that it isn't very, very hard work, but it is hard work. It takes a lot of time and effort.
Right, and it hones discipline. I remember, I won't mention the university, but I remember teaching, walking into a class that I really wasn't slated to teach. I was kind of thrust in this class. I was teaching in the sociology department, but the psychology department at the school needed well, the teacher got sick.
Okay.
And I ended up having to do dual duty.
Okay.
And so it wasn't a stretch to teach in the psychology department. I have a little bit of background as a sociology guy, political science guy.
Sure.
And so I brought, so one of the, in the syllabus, I asked for a 20-page paper at the end of the semester. These were level 4. These were 400
level.
411 students. And they were preparing for their thesis. They were preparing to write prospectus. And so I saw it not an over determination of what they needed to do. First thing, one of these seniors said to me, "I can't believe you want us to write a 20-page paper." And I looked at him and I said, "And I can't believe you expect to write a 75-page thesis paper
there it is.
in 6 months if you cannot."
Oh my.
And then I said, "Excuse me, if you're not willing."
Oh my. Lay it down now, boy.
A 20-page paper that I'm telling you in August is not due until the end of December.
Yeah.
And that student, he's one of my Facebook friends now. He constantly falls over me, thanking me, acknowledging that he could not have written his thesis without that. There you go. That paper became a large part of his thesis. Sure. And so we have to learn that type of discipline. And now he helps. He has a service where he helps people prepare for their thesis. Yeah. That's the and so it's fulfilling. That's I love to get those types of stories. Yeah. Because and the things that have helped me, forced me to write well or better. I didn't like at the time. I had some annoying teachers. Mark Shook, Dr. Mark Shook. I still cringe at thinking, but he forced me. He believed, and so
there it is. Yeah, we've got teachers that push us and prod us, and at the moment, honestly, we do not like them. Right. There's no question about that at all. But at the end of the day, which means probably 10 to 20 years later, we do appreciate them so much more than
absolutely. He was, and I see the providential hand of God in preparing me to get to a place to be on this radio, to be on this broadcast, to produce a book, to produce a dissertation, to write in blogs, to just to be on panels, to prepare sermons. And I do say this often. I don't know how people take it. You've been to hear me preach. I don't use notes, but I do write the sermon. Yeah. Okay. Well, that is some. You have to learn that. Yeah, you do. You have to learn that. I'm not a person that because I'm, what's the term? So engaged with the people. That reading off the sermon for me, my father's ministry taught it, but reading off the sermon for me doesn't work well. I'm better as a conversation. Extemporaneous. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I've written a sermon. Yeah. I have it. It's going to be 7 to 10 pages. It's back there in that study. Someone taught us these things, and the people who were teaching us, they didn't know they were getting us ready for our own companies, our own producing our own products, our own entrepreneurial spirit. They were just doing their task. I take that as the providential care of God, placing these people in our lives without even knowing what our futures were going to be, but just doing their role. God's hand was in it. God knew what he was going to cause us to be. And anybody, in any, everybody has whether they know it or not, Dr. Echo, has a entrepreneurial gift. You can be a business owner at something if you desire. And I mean someone 90 and someone, my first business, I was 8. 8? I was 8. Wow. What were you doing at 8? My mother, I wanted what was a Schwinn Stingray. I remember the wheel in the front. I remember those. I wanted one of those, had the little shock in the front. Yeah, man. And my mother told me that no. I don't even remember why. She told me no. That same day, my father had told me to cut the grass. So we had this old lawnmower that wouldn't work right. It just wouldn't work right. And I kept cutting off. And so I stopped, really looked to see what's wrong with this thing. It was as simple as two things. One, the spark plug attachment was off. Then it still would work longer, but not well. Then it dawned on me, well, if that's something connected to the spark plug connection, maybe it's the spark plug. I took the spark plug out, went and got the one my father had in the garage, put it in there. It worked properly. We had two other lawnmowers in there. Happened to have the same problem. I didn't know it. So I started to look and notice that other people's grass was not being cut. And one lady, Miss Harris, down the street, she had a son who went to college. I thought in my mind, I bet that it was his job to cut their grass. Tap on the door, Miss Harris, can I cut your grass? She said, yeah, I'll give you $5. But you got to cut the ladies next door's grass too, because James is going to school and he cuts her grass too. So it was $10.
Wow. Look at you.
So I asked her to go into what I had learned in school called a promise. It was another word for agreement. Or
that's it. Yeah.
So I said, will you promise to let me do this She said, sure, you're a smart kid. Sure. So that 2 turned into 5 and turned into 8. So I tied these 3 lawnmowers so that one wouldn't cut off and drug them down the street after I bought my Stingray bike. And I did that up until I was about 13 when I got really into sports.
Wow.
And so my parents didn't have to give me allowance. I made probably about $30 every 2 weeks doing that. That's 40 years ago, man.
That's big bucks, man.
So it's all in the thinking. It's all in, it's all in the, and the biggest thing about it was that my parents were so proud of me.
Oh, there it is.
That was the biggest thing about that they saw that they were proud of me.
So, folks who are listening to us, watching us right now, for all your money management concerns, please turn your attention to my co-host, Dr. Clyde.
It's in the garage. It's all in the garage. No, that's a very basic, a truth that points to the fact that if you can knit, if you can sew, there are home-based businesses, and there are things that can be done to make money that people really don't think about if they're not tapping into the concept that God wants you to be able. A lot of people sit on their wealth, Mark, and they don't know it. They have money struggles. Well, some have it from not tithing and bring offering, but others, on top of that, they don't use what they can do, or watch this. Some people do it for another company and are making someone else rich and can't understand why they always struggle. You are not designed to always make someone else rich. You don't know any rich people who spent their whole life working for someone else.
Edward Jones is calling right now to get the watchword from the man sitting next to me right now.
Think about it. Think about it. If you take, I mean, you look at these people who are wealthy. They are constantly looking for a way that they can be at the helm of to implement an idea or concept, evil or not, right or wrong. It's even as horrible as this sounds, the drug dealer. They are just merchant. They are propagating a concept, an idea that they believe they have a consumer base for.
That's right.
And that's, I in no way think that's godly, right, or should happen.
Right.
But we're talking principles of entrepreneurship.
Exactly right. Yeah. They're using what they have to create wealth.
And to create wealth by taking advantage. They're using Deuteronomy 8 to tap into, unfortunately, a client base that is limitless.
Yes.
And they are destroying the fabric of America in the process.
Right. Right. Indeed. And this goes back to the issue of stewardship, of course. It's one of the reasons why folks like Dr. Clyde Tosley preach every Sunday and pastor a church, so that he can develop this, not just this shepherding process through pastoral care, but to help his people to think about stewardship and to care for the things that they've been given. All of that matters tremendously. All of that matters. And right across the street, we see coming down the sidewalk, holding hands, John and Tiffany Dearman. And Polly Riddell, by the way, Dr. Clyde, just mentioned here online, I need an entrepreneurial counseling session with Dr. Clyde. So there you go, Polly. Thank you for that note.
He's charismatic and the comedian.
Yeah, exactly right. So we're really grateful to have these folks here. They're just coming in the door. And before we get to them, we've got another 10 minutes or so for you to kind of hang in there with us. But, quite frankly, it's been really eye-opening for me. I frankly have not heard this story from Dr. Clyde Posley before, and this story about his lawnmower business. So I'm really glad to learn a little bit more about it.
It didn't have a name.
That's all right, man. You got the spark plug down.
It didn't have a name. I learned how to, so I went and bought me a supply of spark plugs.
Yeah.
And I started working with a little carburetor, and I could make sure I kept the oils changed. And then a man taught me how to take how to sharpen the blades with a file.
Yeah.
Called a file. And so it really, so I bought, I'd take it, I'd buy, I didn't understand about tithing and offering at that time. And so before I got done, I learned, to tithe into the body of Christ. And I saved money in a shoebox. And most things I bought were for myself, like Stretch Armstrong, Bozo the Clown. I bought Chuck Taylor, white Converse. My first pair of Chuck Taylors. So I was able to do, but it taught me that what I do remember, and to this day, I still remember in the darkest of times, in the most difficult moments of financial difficulty I've had, I've asked God to speak to me about what's in me, and that's never failed. Yet He is. That Spirit has gotten me through, and God has been far better to me than I expected.
And we're grateful to hear these words here this morning from Dr. Clyde Posley, telling us actually a story from when he was 8 years of age, even up till the age of 13, mowing lawns. We're talking about small business here this morning, and from a Christian vantage point. Dr. Clyde, you and I you've really mentioned it a couple of times now. Why don't we take the last few moments here of our first hour to talk about the necessity of giving, which then provides more influx of capital and more wealth because we have given to the church, back to God again. What is the principle that you would direct people to help them to understand it's really important for people to remember that their responsibility as Christians is actually to give back?
Right. Well, if being godly, or as you said, being a Christian is our desire, then we should try to mimic God, to be as God would have us to be in the earth. And the greatest thing we know about God that has personally affect us as humans, whether it is arguable, I guess, but it's that God gave. We have relationship with God. I mean, God, we don't have a relationship with Him because He made the universe. We don't have a relationship with Him because He is wise. We have our first real connection with Him as individuals is when we begin to reconcile that He gave His only begotten Son, and whosoever believes in Him will not perish but have everlasting life. When we come to understand the rest of that verse, that God sent not His Son to the world to condemn the world, but the world might be saved. So the first thing we need to learn is the most important thing we need to learn about to be godly. The principle that to be godly is to be a giver. He goes on in 2 Corinthians chapter 9 to say that God loves a cheerful giver, and from that giving, all grace is added unto you in that same passage. The thing that has made the difference in my world, the greatest expressions, greatest impact that I see people making on earth is those who are in businesses who give back to their community, who serve the homeless, who take their wealth and not just, this is my opinion, like Elon Musk, this guy is, while he's giving in one place, he's doing things that don't sometimes make sense, but the people who make the most impact are the ones who gain wealth and look for a way to cause others to be blessed from how they're being blessed. And so that's something I'm going to do. I'm in the process now one of my businesses of setting up a scholarship fund that specifically to give to students who are struggling financially, who are making good grades but struggling financially. I want to give to that. I don't expect God to just pour into me without there being a door for me to pour into people.
Mm-hmm.
People who learn to give as they receive make the most impact in society.
It's important to recognize, by the way, that as we live in Indianapolis, that we have some great examples of this. We mentioned the Tobias Center, Tobias Leadership Center, which was founded and established by Ambassador Tobias, who gave a large amount of money to make this center happen. And then, of course, we live in one of the most philanthropic cities in the world because of Eli Lilly, the pharmaceutical company, who made millions and millions of dollars and then established trusts and foundations and so on that would then promote and give this money out to other people from that time on. And of course, there are managers, conservers, preservers of this amount of money here in Indianapolis and doing good with this. And of course, now we have one of the greatest philanthropy schools in the world, which is actually at IUPUI.
Absolutely.
So it's a very important process that we're talking about here, not just in terms of conserving that which we've been given and stewarding it, but then to allow it to be promoted and produced from, and the explication of what we have been given to other people. And that's what Dr. Clyde and I are celebrating here.
Absolutely, absolutely. When the church was established, shortly after the day of Pentecost, they immediately established a plan to disperse to the needs of all.
There it is. Yeah.
And they also quickly disciplined the couple that worked against that principle of serving one another, serving the common good and express. Throughout Scripture, we find God with God blessing and disciplining based on how a person's mindset was about their giving. Man with the barns, who had the ability to bless many, but only wanted to build bigger barns. Only place in Scripture we find God saying, "You fool." You fool. Why? Because you are seeking ways to hoard what I'm giving you. And so, and so just the Scripture is filled. The Bible is filled with the notion, with the concept, with the truth. There's a thread throughout it that, and throughout the Old Testament, you made many references to this. God, in the first 5 books of Moses are constant references to the reality that we should treat strangers well, that we should create paths for them to dwell in and to be nourished. Leave part of your harvest for the stranger. We see God sending to making his love available to the Ninevites through Jonah. Most people think of Jonah and think of the story of the whale. That story is not about a whale. It's about God's love to people who hated him. And he's sending Jonah. What Jonah didn't want to do was actually go express God's love for some people who have been known to hate God. And so so when people decide, so to the nutshell for me, entrepreneurial spirit for Christians, for people who are seeking to be godly and kingdom people, is to let God teach you to develop the gift that's in you so that you can learn how to better serve others.
Yes, absolutely. You've been listening to Warp and Woof Radio, RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site. This has been our first hour. We've been discussing, Dr. Clyde Posley, Dr. Mark Eckel have been discussing the issue of small business, entrepreneurial spirit from a decidedly biblical, theological, Christian point of view. In our second hour, we're going to be blessed to have John and Tiffany Dearman here, who are going to talk about their own personal experience in small business development as Christians, and you'll be seeing them in just a few minutes. We're going to be taking a 2-song break here at the top of the hour, and when we come back, we will, after we get our pictures taken and all that good stuff we do every week, we're going to be hearing from John and Tiffany Dearman. So 2-song break, we'll be right back. For those of you who are hanging with us here, YouTube, Facebook, we're going to get out of our chairs here for just a second, go get pictures taken, and then we'll be back. So hang in there with us. We will return.
When I saw that picture, I told my wife,
James Bond.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I know. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
See you again. See you too, man. Absolutely.
Nice to meet you.
Come on over, let's get a picture, and we'll shove out this picture later on.
Well, that's our photographer.
Yeah,
At the same time.
Yeah, the man who kind of controls the whole system here, so.
And I'm not getting any internet in here.
Oh, really?
You're still in there?
Yeah. How you doing? HB is asking a question about the internet.
Not getting any internet, man.
How you doing?
Yeah, we were trying to connect with you guys this morning on the radio.
No, it's been on up until 5 minutes ago. You get these pictures real quick.
Yeah.
How you guys doing?
Good, man.
Very nice to meet you guys. Nice to meet you.
Absolutely.
We usually get this shot right here, so, the four of us right next to each other. That'd be great. Thank you. Oh, boy. One more? All right. We gotta make sure that the lady is pleased with this.
That's all it matters. There we go.
Let the woman see. Yeah, the woman has to see. All right, we're coming back in here.
We will take pictures.
Thanks for hanging in there with us. So we're gonna set up our guests.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Let's take one more.
One more?
That's approved. Yeah, I need to get that back.
Another picture?
Absolutely.
All right.
HB gets a book, absolutely. Set up these chairs. So let's have.
I'm gonna sit over here on this side. We put them right in the middle.
Let's see if we, yeah, let's see if we can move that chair over a little bit more. So if
Yeah.
we got two people. We might need to go here a little bit. Here.
Yep, absolutely. Turn that baby around.
You in that picture?
No, they don't need to see me.
Okay.
You don't need to see me.
Please. Come on. Either way.
Yeah, either way, whichever.
Which of you do you think will be speaking the most? Or will it be dual?
No, it'll be dual.
Okay, so you guys just sit right close to each other. And, the second will be most find the church just a little.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, I guess that's good. You guys, this will be mostly about you. If we ask questions because of something that you said, but this next hour will be mostly you.
Yeah, so there you are right there. You are in the photograph. So if you want to move that, and sometimes this microphone has a bit of trouble. So however that looks to you, seeing your visage there.
Should I leave it here even if it's right in front of my face? That's
Yeah.
where it needs to be.
Yeah, just move it toward you. Yeah, a little bit.
Towards me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that is important. But sometimes people say they have trouble picking us up. And so, in fact,
hey, good morning, Joseph. Thanks for checking in here with us, and appreciate your note. I'm gonna read the whole note later on. We'll make sure that we do that. Thanks for joining us here today. We have folks, when we do the Facebook Live, of course, you get all kinds of whatever, folks joining us from wherever they are. Joseph's actually from Florida, so
cool.
yeah,
Great.
so we get folks from all over the place. One of the nice things about Facebook Live is that it really has this permeating impact all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our tech guy sometimes the streams aren't always as reliable as they might be, so he actually goes into YouTube Live, sometimes pulls out the streams and then puts that in the podcast. So yeah, I'm really happy to work with such really good people that know what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's important.
Definitely not a techie.
Yeah. I'm happy to pay somebody to take care of that every single time, man. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, as business owners, we know what we can take on and what we need to
Our
sell out.
limitations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, that's what Dr. Clyde mentioned is the case. This is all about you guys. So, whatever you want to talk about, whatever direction you want to go, you want to ad lib, extemporaneous, whatever. Yeah. This really becomes a conversation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And do you want to focus it just on the business or anything about our history or like our background or story?
Oh, please. Yeah. The
Up
first
to you.
question is going to be about
It's
you.
gonna be about absolutely.
How is that or whatever?
Yeah.
Sure.
And then after that, maybe we'll get into a question or two, but
Right.
that'll be about it.
We may get into a question or two.
Okay.
We may not.
Okay,
We just kind of feed off what you say and how you and go along with this. We want this to be a spotlight about you.
Awesome.
And that's really, honestly, it's the reason why we're stepping out of the spotlight here because, the first hour we set the biblical theological.
Sure.
This hour is all about you guys. So. And I was telling everybody on air earlier that you two are the very first couple, anybody, frankly, who I've invited back the very next week to talk again.
Yeah,
So-
it makes sense. Like,
A whole lot of
should we
pressure
be
there,
nervous?
Mark.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
No pressure at all.
Well, we got some, what's that? Thank you, sir. Yeah, we've got some really big, the social issue that you wanted to talk about. You want to talk about running for board member of a school,
Yeah,
wow, this is
absolutely.
huge.
Yeah.
So these are really good things. So, honestly, kudos to you guys because this is the first time this is happening.
Well,
Look at you.
yes, we are
We
humbled.
feel humbled and
We're
honored.
humbled.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know if we know what we're doing here.
Right. This is the first for us.
This is the
So.
first for us too.
Well-
This is kind of bittersweet for me because we went to high school together,
Okay.
and our high school was close.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
just thinking about all of the,
That's so cool.
I don't know the term to say other than impactful,
Mm.
prominent young men and women that have come out of Arlington. And it's like one of the city's best kept secrets.
Mm.
Really is.
Wow.
Yeah,
That is-
about 10, 15 pastors, about 4 or 5 PhDs.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
small
I mean, if I
business
wasn't, if I,
owner.
if I was making it up, I wouldn't have ever tell my wife all the time. If it's not true, shouldn't be any evidence. We have, just Mr. Basketball, just so many, so it's kind of, but it's also good to see that the education was real. I referenced Mr. Urbane. Remember
Okay.
him?
Yeah.
In this
Mhm.
book, the professors of English. I was shoved into after what we call Iowa test back then.
Mhm.
I was put in a college preparatory English level as a sophomore. Mr. Urbane used to force us to learn a word a day, a huge word a day we didn't know. I hated it.
Yeah.
But it was huge. It was just for later,
Mhm.
for writing, for conversation,
Nice.
and that type of education was going on.
It's great.
Yeah.
I'm really, I'm sorry to hear about high school. That's
I-
an unfortunate blow to history, honestly.
Yeah,
Mhm.
It really is.
not just Arlington.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why you want to be in a school board, right?
That is one of the
It
reasons
is,
why I went to be on
yeah.
the school board.
Prepping you for
Absolutely.
next week.
Thank you. Appreciate
You cannot
that.
take the pillars of education in an urban setting. You cannot take those out
Right.
and then expect it to develop.
Right.
Yeah.
The
Especially.
core of developing a society is that society's ability to educate themselves.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Maurice, for the shout out, brother. Appreciate it. We're going to be starting here again in just a minute. This is our normal practice, so we take the 2-song break at the top of the hour, and then we come back in. So we'll do. Thank you, sir. We'll do about 15, 20 minutes, or just depending on how the conversation goes. We'll take another break in between, and then take the rest up till 10, till the hour.
That's good.
We've got another group. 10 Point comes in right after us. 10 Point
nice.
Coalition.
Oh, great.
So yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Very cool.
That's great.
Yep. HP's. And we're back. Warp and Woof Radio Next.tv at the Cool Groove site. We come to you every Wednesday from 10 until noon. And you can see us through the plate glass windows, by the way, if you want to join us at 2131 East 10th Street, right across the street from the Bonner Center. And I'll even take you out to lunch at Burger King afterwards. It's a great place to eat. They've got great salads over there. Kudos to Burger King. So here we are. We're talking about small business here today. Dr. Clyde and I just got done chatting about that biblical theological base from a Christian point of view. Glad to have done that. Learned about your lawnmower business, which I won't forget anytime soon, by the way. I think that's pretty cool. But right now, today, we have a wonderful opportunity to have special guests, John and Tiffany Dearman, here from the west side of Indianapolis. And they're going to be talking with us here today about their own personal experiences in the small business world. So, John, Tiffany, thanks so much for joining us here today. We're grateful that you're here. Go ahead and just kind of start off and tell us about yourselves. Give us some background, family, where you've come from. However you want that to go, just jump in.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, Dr. Clyde and Mark, thank you so much for this huge
My pleasure.
opportunity for us to come and share our story. And then ultimately, it's not about us. It's all about Christ and what we can do to further his kingdom. So
There you go.
if this setting can be an opportunity for us to do this, we're here. And we're so excited that we're blessed to be welcomed back next week.
Absolutely.
We're excited about that as
Yeah, man.
well. So I'm going to jump right in. John Dearman, my wife, Tiffany Dearman, we have been married for a little over almost 3 years now.
Yeah.
2016 is when the Lord brought us together. We're a blended family. I have 3. She has 3. And I'm going to see if I can get this right. So Carr is 26. Kennedy's 25. I is 17, then my 3, Jayla's 14, and then I have 2 rambunctious boys, Nicholas 11 and Noah 6.
Wow.
So we have Noah is 9.
He
Sorry.
will not forgive you.
Yeah. He won't be listening to this anyway, so
All right.
you're good. Should we edit that out? But it's just exciting that the Lord has brought our family together from a blended perspective. We have sort of derived in this place from death in terms of my first late wife passed away with cancer in 2016, of course, 2013, sorry. And then, of course, my wife, she...
Good to have a great wife, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And just divorced in terms of, and she can share her story. But we both have come from this broken relationship, but yet God has redeemed us into this relationship, into this family. And we're just excited that what he's doing in our lives. And I'll let my wife sort of take it from there.
Well, I would just say, I think we both feel very much like it's a God story. We were in the same church for probably 8 to 10 years, never met, never crossed paths or anything like that. And then I was single for 11 years, never even went out on a date. And a very good friend of both of ours that we didn't know we had in common actually just set me up. So he knew what the intention was. And Gary knew the intention, but I was a bit blindsided, just focusing on raising my children, and trying to make ends meet. And then God decided that it was time to, bring our families together. And so it's just a really, really neat, opportunity to look back and see where God's hand was over both of us. And we never call it Plan B. We always call it Part 2 of Plan A. For our children, and we're just I'm enjoying an opportunity to have a second chance at mothering some 3 beautiful children that he's been so committed to. And it's just been, of course, blending families, we say it's not for the faint of heart. It takes some real intentionality, but it's been a really beautiful experience, opportunity, and now our kids have more support, in a bigger family. So that's just a little bit about our story.
That's great. We would call ourselves the Black Brady Bunch.
3 boys and 3-year-olds.
We're all about that, right?
Here's the story.
That's right. Here's the story.
And for those of you too young to remember who the Brady Bunch
That's
is,
right. We're aging
go
ourselves now.
Google that thing, okay? Yeah, make sure you know what that's all about. So tell us a little bit now about where you live in Indianapolis, and tell us about your business. The two of you have two different businesses. So talk about some of those things.
Well, I started when my first wife passed away in 2013. I took off because at that point my kids were 5, 9, 5, 7, and 10. So at that point, I took off for a year just to be all hands on deck to help and allow God to heal our heart through this really hard time. We were almost, their mom and I were almost married for almost 16 years. So it was a little bit of time, a whole lot of time. So at that moment, at that very time, I was working at IU Health for almost 19 years. Great company, really moving and moving up the ranks in that organization. They were a huge blessing to me. So I took off, and I was still able to get a paycheck and be off. Took off for a whole year, and then at that point, I had done some due diligence and homework on looking at some entrepreneur opportunities with this particular company that were in line with my core values, which is to honor God, to do things right with integrity, high level of customer satisfaction. It turned out to be Office Fire Commercial Cleaning Company, which was a franchise started out in Franklin, Indiana. Well, met with a couple of franchise owners and just felt like a part of the family as I met with them, and the core values lined up with me. And at that point, began to really consider, how can I make this happen? And if the Lord is leading me, will I trust Him and follow Him? And that really happened. God opened up an opportunity by faith. I trusted Him and followed Him. And it allowed me to still be all hands on deck with my young children as a single dad, but yet also provide the resources that I need to go forward as a family. And it was going really well. College Park Church family was also very supportive of this journey. And so once I jumped in, had one employee, that was me, 0 accounts. And I'm super blessed and thankful that now I have 12 healthy, vibrant employees, and I have 45 plus accounts all throughout the city. One in Anderson, one in Shelbyville. God has really grown this business, and I'm tremendously happy. And the other thing is, I can still be all hands on deck in a sense with my family as well as my wife and kids. So it's been super exciting. The journey has just been something to tell about, to talk about for His glory, and it's all about Him and not about me.
Okay, so I actually have been in real estate for about 20 years. Have been in Brownsburg for 15 years. So that's where we live now, Brownsburg, Indiana. And I was with New Home Sales. I started with New Home Sales with CP Morgan, which I'm sure some of the listeners out there are probably familiar. We built a whole lot of homes throughout Indianapolis. I was there for about 13 years. And then just before they went out of business, by the grace of God, I'd gotten my real estate license and my brokerage license. And so my company was born out of just meeting a need for clients that we had already purchased homes to be built, and then they weren't going to be built. And so by having my broker's license, I was able to immediately help those people find homes. So that was truly God's timing, just a blessing from the Lord. I remember putting posters on all the model doors saying, if you need help with your earnest money or you need to find a home, please call me. And that's how my company was born, Real Results Real Estate, just trying to get results for people and problem solving. And that's still what I consider it to be today. It's been very successful. God has really blessed me with amazing relationships, with just being engaged with the public, on a daily basis. That in and of itself is just a blessing. It's a lot of fun. And I sell all over. I say Greenwood to Geist and both ways around the circle, just because I had the opportunity to work in almost every school system when I was in New Home Sales. And so I really enjoy real estate. It does give me the opportunity to hopefully live out, my Christian faith and my belief with my clients. Hopefully they see a difference in the way that they are served, and feel like I try to just become part of the family so that they can trust me. And, as a realtor, you're so much more than a realtor for people, because it's a really big and intimidating, purchase for people in the largest one they'll make. So I feel like I've been truly blessed, just to be able to do that, and now to be on the board for my board. That's just another blessing and another broader perspective of how we impact the community as an association. So, yeah.
Marvelous
it's
stuff,
really
right?
fun.
And
Yeah.
she actually sold my first house, and that's part of our
Oh,
story.
yeah.
Dear friend of mine, Gary, we pretty much fellowship, once a month. It's just a brother who is just near and dear to my heart. We've been friends for over 10 plus years, but it's just a brother who loves the Lord. We love God's word, and we just walk and do life together. And I never forget one morning, I had no clue on just talking about this whole dating and courting thing, but as I sat down, I said, "Hey, Gary, do you know anybody who loves Jesus, who loves the word, who loves family?" And he's like, "Why are you asking me this?" And he said, he mentioned her name, and I said, Tiffany. Tiffany who? Like, does she belong to College Park? And he's like, "Yeah." I'm thinking, now I'm thinking, like, do I know this person? Because, we know people, we connect with people, but I didn't know her. And then he said, "Yeah, she sells homes." She's, I said, "Perfect. I'm not ready to sell my home, but I think one day I will. So just see if you can send a message to her." And he sent a message to her, and we met, and here we are.
That's great.
And she feels that I ambushed her, and I probably did, but
But he didn't let the game go too long. He was pretty
Exactly right.
upfront
Yeah.
about his intentions.
That's the best way to be.
Yeah,
There you go.
and she eventually did sell my house. So.
Yep. 7 days over this Friday.
And here we have the real estate lady of the year right over here.
It's great to see how God's hand in it. I absolutely see it. Yeah, absolutely see it.
You've really emphasized quite a bit about the blessings that the Lord has given to you guys and your families and your individual lives and your businesses. What have been, maybe if you could pull out a struggle or two for each of you in terms of your business life, what are the things that you have struggled with the most? Because we know that this isn't just, an easy way to live life as small business owners.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about where you struggle and how you struggle.
I think, Mark, for me, the greatest blessing that ultimately, at the end of the day, God has blessed us to be a good steward of what He has given us. And that's a huge, huge undertaking. And it's really just being a good manager of what He has blessed you with. So as I took on this entrepreneurship and trying to manage this as a business owner perspective, I found some of the hardest things to manage was serving my family, serving the Lord first, serving my family, serving my staff, serving my customers, serving my vendors. So you're constantly giving of yourself to all of these individuals. And sometimes you can downright get stretched. And sometimes we're going in different directions where God is saying, you shouldn't be going that way. You need to be going this way.
And sincerely. You're really trying to do a good job, but you're still stretched.
Yeah, you're stretched. And sometimes you can get overly stretched, if that's a word. And then oftentimes that leads into being stretched more in other areas. And then oftentimes, quite frankly, who suffers? The family.
Yeah.
And I have two, our kids are very active in sports and school and all that good stuff. And sometimes my youngest son sometimes just wants me to be out in the driveway throwing the football with him.
Mhm.
And I just can't. And that's for us, the constant, how am I going to balance this out every single day? And I found as a business owner, I'm constantly praying about that. I'm constantly, God, lead me into this situation, this meeting, this adventure. If it's of you, yes, I'll go. But if it's not, I need to say no, and not at this time. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. It's, as a business owner, it's great because you have flexibility and you have some autonomy, but you also never get to turn it off because you own it, And so for me, it's the same thing. It's the time management, being able to shut things down, saying no, which is so hard to do to clients. And it seems like, it just, honestly, the deals that require the most attention and the most commitment and take the longest oftentimes pay the least. And you have to decide how to balance that. And you never want to say no, because as realtors, we all have to decide that. So those are the people who oftentimes don't ever get a call back. And they're so thankful and grateful when you do, but then you have to manage, okay, how do I do this 4 times over and, manage the clients that I'm already, committed to. So I think it's hard to say no. For me anyway, because I want to help people. And then just time management for the family, getting dinner on the table, at a decent time and things like that, as a business owner, it's hard to shut it off. It's hard to take vacation. And have someone else take over. So,
just out of the blue here, and I know I didn't necessarily send a question about this, but I wonder if you could address the issue of vocation as ministry, your job as ministry. John, just a moment ago, you said about how much you give to people and so on, your vendors and your employees and so on. Talk about the job that you have, the vocation that you have as a ministry itself.
I think that's one of the things that drew me the most with Office Private Franchise, the brand. The first core value they listed out was to honor God. And I really feel that everything that I do in my life is to do that, is to honor God. If you think about the gospel and the gospel itself, as the children of God, at every given moment of your life, whatever occupation you're doing, we should spread the aroma of Jesus Christ in what we're doing.
Right.
So to honor God, to me, means honor God with integrity in terms of giving a fair and balanced quote to my customers, to be professional, to really leave that room where they say, wow, that guy is different, and different in a way that points to not just any human standards, but that this person is being governed and guided by someone bigger than him. I also really pour into that and lean into that with my staff. I'm very, very forthright with what this business is all about. I'm just being a steward. I tell the people who want to come on board with me, they say, I'm just trying to be a good steward of what God has given me in this business. If you want to be a part of this, I want to serve him as I serve you as my staff member. I want to serve him as we're serving the customer together. And Dr. Clyde also had opportunity to share my story of hope and restoration to some of my staff members. So I really do believe that when I just continue to lean into that and allow God to use me, it's all about him and not about me. And I'm not shy to say what this is all about. I tell all of my staff, I let them know that opportunity presents itself where we want to make a difference in the community. Opportunity presents itself that I want to connect with the Bonner Center and bring some people on board. I'm really excited about the opportunities that I made with Work One and the reentry of ex-felons and ex-addicts. That's all Jesus, because we all need a second chance. We all have a story, and why not me, in terms of God using me and Office Pride in this ministry to bring forth his glory. So I get excited about that. And I'm still pushing into that those more opportunities will come my way. And I'm hoping this will be an opportunity for push opportunities in terms of furthering his kingdom.
Yeah. I'd say there's 2 specific areas that really allow me to share principles of my faith. One is I have the privilege of being a Dave Ramsey ELP, which is all about financial peace, achieving financial peace with the Prince of Peace. So if someone's looking for a home in Indianapolis and they go on that site, I will be one of the agents that they would be able to choose from to help them with the process. And I love that because it allows me the opportunity to counsel with people about financial stewardship, which again, if it's all God's and it all belongs to him, then we should take care of it for the time that we have it, as though it is his. And that, especially with young couples who are like first-time home buyers, but I meet a lot of couples who are not first-time home buyers who also struggle with having a budget, with prioritizing their finances, with communicating together on that. We know money is one of the number one causes of divorce and money arguments. So helping people, in that area, I love it. We got to do that class with our young adults at College Park. and I got to use a lot of the training that I've gotten through the Dave Ramsey program and gone through that program. So that's one area where I feel like it really allows me to be able to share the principles of my faith. And then the other one, I think, is just, a lot of times people are selling properties and they don't live here. And they need someone who can truly own the whole process. If repairs have to be made, painting has to be done, staging, all of that. And that's a scary proposition when you can't be here to see what someone's doing and what they're charging you for what they say they've done. And so I really do take that seriously, and that has kind of created a niche for me in my business, and being able to work with either investors or homeowners who are out of state and need to sell their property. Actually, appointment tomorrow with someone, and just having relationships with contractors who have integrity, that I can say, hey, I need this done, I need it done this way, and just give them, an estimate on it. So that I feel like is also just the integrity piece of it. And wanting people to feel like they can trust me to a degree that they may not feel like they can, trust just anyone that they talk to. So I feel like I'm able to share my faith, and hopefully they see something different, in me and that commitment. But I think those are two areas that really give me the opportunity. And there's training other realtors. I love to train. That's my passion. So new agents in the business, that have questions, and being able to really give, serve well in that way. So.
These have been huge opportunities to hear from you two. We're going to take a one-song break, but when we come back, we want to hear more from John and Tiffany Dearman. You're listening to Warp and Woof Radio at RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site. And when we return, we'll talk more about small business and entrepreneurialism from a Christian point of view. Thanks for listening to us this morning. Those of you who are staying with us, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, we'll stay right here. You stay right here with us, and we'll continue the conversation. One song break. We'll be right back. So that was easy.
That was easy.
You all did 20 minutes with no problem. Look at you.
That was
I
right.
was sweating for a minute there.
Ah.
I'm going to reach out to you.
Yeah, man, you get the saddle. It's just, look out. It's riding into the sunset now.
Absolutely.
One of the biggest problems I know in the African American community is that people who want to start businesses, they only want to make money. And if you are a Christian, that can never be a number one goal.
Right.
It cannot be. It cannot be.
Yeah.
I'd like you guys to talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
The entrepreneur spirit is correct. It is right. But money cannot be your number one goal. Not if you're a child of God.
Yeah.
Now, if you're in the world and that's what you pursue, that's fine. It's not gonna work that way either. But if you're gonna be a child of God, the kingdom of God has to be glorifying God by using kingdom principles has to be your goal.
Yeah.
And I talk to my children, my kids about it. I'm in a blended family of sorts.
Yeah.
Of sorts. So if I talk to my children about it constantly, that you have got to keep the kingdom of God before you, and how you treat people, and what your plans are, and what businesses you seek to start. This is hot right now.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's hot or right for you.
Yeah.
It means spirit led for you. The football player graduated from Ball State. He's just all over. He's trying to find wherever he can. You ever have someone you talk to or one of your kids, they hear the part of what you say that they like.
Yeah.
So I've talked to them about how important it is to learn to head your own business. All he hears about is I'm in charge. He hears that I'm in charge. And so anybody who could tell him about how to be, better, in charge, he's excited about that.
Right.
But not this whole process of, like you said, you worked for IU 19 years.
Right.
We talked about that just before you guys started walking up. Any true successful entrepreneur that I know, Christian entrepreneur, God sends them some company to sit under, to learn, to watch, to make your mistakes, to fail, to watch what they fail at and say, okay, don't do that, before he puts you in your own, the helm of your own business. I've just seen it so many times. Principles just don't change. And so I tell my son that same thing.
Yeah.
The beauty with that is that you don't want to burn your bridges, because I know I could probably call my manager today and she'd be like, well, love to invite me back into a leadership role at IU Health.
Right.
You know,
Right.
because that's kind of where they were kind of leading me, taking me. But it's because of my work ethic and my integrity and
Right.
no fear of not sharing my faith. They hated seeing me go, but they were excited about me going to first and serve my family in that situation with my wife, who's at that point, my late wife, who was really in her last days. They supported me on that, but they was welcoming me back. But also they said, hey, whatever you do, we know you have our blessings and that we're here for you always. And that's one of the things I try to share with some of my employees, to say, hey, don't burn your bridges, you know. So sometimes we think it's being the boss, but you're also a mentor, a coach.
It's a pastor of sorts. Being a pastor of
Oh my
sorts.
God.
Sometimes you wear all these hats, but at the end of the day, you're self-serving. You know, I think a lot of times people miss that part. You know, as a boss, you're thinking you're the boss, but really, what I realize now after 5+ years in this is that I'm constantly giving and serving,
Yeah.
which is what Christ has done for all of us every single day.
Yeah. You're only reading somebody's song.
30 seconds.
All right. So when we come back, Dr. Clyde, why don't you lead us off?
Where did you say we wanted to go next?
You were, it doesn't matter to me.
Okay, that's
I mean,
Okay.
your
So I'm gonna
comment
talk a
about
little bit about
wealth, and I think that's really huge.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna,
Bring us in, Mark.
all right. And we are back, Warp and Woof Radio, RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site. You hear us every Wednesday from 10 until noon, right across the street from the Bonner Center, 2131 East 10th Street. Glad to be in the urban core of Indianapolis, the opportunity to minister in and around Indianapolis with great folks who come to us every week, telling us about their experiences as Christians, based on Titus chapter 3, 1, 8, and 14, to do good, do good, do good. That's our focus here in this particular show and every show that we do. Dr. Clyde, you had some questions for our guests that you want to make sure to contribute here. So go ahead and talk with them about the kinds of things that you were interested in discussing.
That's right. Now, what I want to ask can be answered by either John or Tiffany, but I'd like for them to discuss, maybe it's not a question, I'd like for them to discuss how to curb the enthusiasm of a young person who is interested in starting a business, but maybe not for the right reasons. What I mean more specifically, often the idea, the notion of being an entrepreneur is exciting because they get to be in charge. But often that's because they think they're going to make the most money, or that it's a chance to get rich quick. Can you talk about that? What some of the pitfalls of that kind of mindset and how they should?
Yeah, well, I think, again, getting back to biblical principles, it's very clear in scripture, when your house is built on sand, it's not going to stand.
Right.
And so having the Lord be the foundation of that, for me, for instance, I can remember in my 10-year working in new home sales, when there were times when I just didn't feel like I was getting the recognition that I should have been getting. And, scripture clearly says we don't exalt ourselves, we allow God to do that. And he does oftentimes prepare us for those times by taking us through, the groundwork, the training, the learning. We have 2 adult children, and I do believe eventually both of them will probably end up starting businesses. But I stress to them all the time, get all of the knowledge, the information, build the relationships that you have now in the field that you enjoy. They're both in fields that they really enjoy and they're very good at and they're gifted. God has gifted them in those areas. But there's still a lot to learn, more about people and engaging with people than about their trade.
Right.
They're very good at their trade. But I had a boss who used to tell me all the time, spare me your brilliance until you've been here a little while. And now I look back and that was really, really good wisdom, because it's easy to get excited and think you just have it all figured out, when you come out of college or you have your education. But it's invaluable to learn how to interact with people. I mean, you're only leading if someone's actually following you. And you can't force that.
That is
and
true.
So I think to encourage young people to, be patient. get the knowledge, you don't want to start a business and then fail. You want it to be successful, and you want to pray through what does that look like, and how can you do that in a way that glorifies God? Because we know his number one concern is souls,
Right.
and that all would come to him. And so anything that he blesses us with is going to be because that's where our passions are and where
Right.
our heart is. And then oftentimes the rest will come. I mean, it doesn't mean that we can't be profitable, we can't be successful, but it means that the fundamental, passions of our heart are to seek God, to glorify
Yeah, I
him,
was just
and allow him to bless it,
Absolutely.
as he chooses and as he sees fit.
absolutely, as you were speaking, that Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added,
Right.
was coming to my mind. What are your thoughts about that, John?
I think one of the things, Dr. Clyde, is first and foremost, you need to get to the heart of this person who's wanting to start a business.
Mhm.
Is it for the financial success, or is he or she trying to make a difference in the community? And ultimately, if you're a Christian, you want to be all about the kingdom purpose.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. My listeners know.
So-
They think I told you to say that. I didn't.
That is, that's the core, that's the foundation of God sending us, God calling us. It's not about us to start this business to make a bunch of money, because we all know that is possible.
Right.
But without God, you can make a bunch of money today, but be broke tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But with God, first and foremost, like my wife said, patience. With me and my story, I did my due diligence. I did my homework. I knew God was leading me to be an entrepreneur. But the first thing I was like, Lord, are you sending me? And if it's you, I will go. And he worked that out in terms of prayer, fasting, God's word, but also he gave me some wisdom. Do I have the resources to start a business?
Right.
And if I don't, what am I doing to get myself in a position to start a business? Next thing is do your due diligence on this business industry. Office Pride, I end up meeting with several franchise owners and say, hey, what does this look like?
Yeah.
I had a laundry list of questions, okay? As a business owners and franchise owners, how is the Office Pride brand going to support you in your infant stages of starting this business? How does this look for you when you started this business? So tell this person, this young man, this young lady, just this is my story, and walk them through that and give them some perspective. And then a lot of times I realize they will sit back and say, wow, I didn't know it was about this. I didn't know they had to go through this. But once you get through that and they have the resources, let them know it's hard work. And then from a Christian's perspective, it's hard work. Not being just like the other business owner who's just trying to get a dollar. We as Christian business owners, we do things with integrity, character. We treat our staff right. If we treat our staff right, our customers we treated right. And sometimes we understand through God's wisdom, this customer, this staff may not be a good fit for our business model. And we have to have that understanding, because if it's all about the money, I'm taking on everybody.
Right.
Sometimes taking on everyone is not always a wise fit.
Going too fast.
So I really begin to walk them through in terms of a day in the life of my lifestyle, but also let them know you cannot do this alone. You have to have like-minded brothers. You have to connect yourself, surround yourself with people who are all about the kingdom purpose, who's all about doing things right with integrity, and also doing it with passion and excellence.
That's right.
That's where the resources will then begin to come. I believe the 46 customers that I have, the reason why they've been with me for 3 or 4 plus years is because I try to serve them at a high level. I try to serve them with integrity in terms of if they have an issue or whatever. I try to be intentional, giving them a call back 24 to 48 hours. I try to interact with them in a very professional way. And sometimes if I can't do it, I simply say, I'm sorry.
Right.
There's a lot of humility, Dr. Clyde, in being a leader.
That's right.
And sometimes you have to say that. That's a difference. So I really try to just unpack and let them know this is what it's like.
Right.
But if you're willing to put the work in with God as your source of your strength and your passion and your purpose, all things are possible.
Yeah, two things I want to comment very quickly about that. One, I think John's going to be starting another business soon, a church soon. He's got it, doesn't he?
Oh, my word, yes.
But
Don't believe what he said.
another thing is what both of you talked about, the importance and we haven't mentioned this, but in leadership, whether it be a business, pastoring, professoring, relationships
Yeah.
are so valuable. Dr. Eugene White, who's president of Martin University, who I understand is retiring now, was complimenting me about something once in a class. It pulled me out of the class, scared me to dickens, because he pulled me right out of the class to talk to me while I was teaching. And he was giving me scores about surveys that have been taken. And he said about this particular thing, I scored the highest. And he said, I want to tell you why you scored the highest. And the president's talking to you, he's coming to you out of class, you just kind of listen, you don't say anything.
Yeah.
He said, I don't know what it is about you, but you have learned the importance of relationships. And relationships matter. And I think I see that thread throughout what Tiffany is saying, what John is saying, and we talk about it all the time. Relationships, leadership, leading people, or fellowship is about relationships. To clients, to constituents, to staff, to constituents, relationships. And I think in an overarching way, businesses do better when they make the relationship a priority versus the reward, the riches. I really do. That's what I hear you saying.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So how John or Tiffany, what advice would you give someone who decided today they're listening to the broadcast, they hear you, they see you, you become interesting to them? What would you tell them to do? 2 or 3 things to start their own businesses.
I would say first do your research. Make sure you know what you're getting into in terms of the field or the industry that you're choosing. Make sure you know what the outlook is for that industry and for the specific trade that you want to go into in that industry. What does it look like 10 years from now? How is it changing? Because that you're never standing still. You're either forward or backward typically in any situation. So I would say do your research. I would say look at your finances. A lot of businesses, I think the average is still 2 years before a small business will either fold or get past that hump. And the numbers are still pretty high for new businesses that don't make it. And oftentimes that's finances either growing too fast or growing too slow, which is why it's really important to look at the outlook, that business, the future outlook. First and foremost, praying. As believers, we want to be feeling like God is calling us. Is it truly a gift? Is it something that you're passionate about, that you can be the best at, and that you can potentially profit at? Look at all those areas so there doesn't become frustrations when you get into that business, areas that you just didn't explore deeply enough before you decided, take that leap and get some good mentors around you.
Yeah.
Because even when you check off all those boxes, as soon as you get into it, some of those are going to change. And it's so great to have relationships and, people who've been where you're trying to go that can share with you some of the pitfalls that you might run into and can be there to give you good advice and direction and guidance from a biblical perspective when you get to those places. We have those, and I think that's a very important part of being successful in a business.
Yeah. I think relationship, Dr. Clyde, is absolutely essential. I realize that people don't buy my product, they buy me. It's the relationship.
Yeah.
In regards to this person who wants to start a business, this person, I will sit them down and say, hey, you need to find that person who's doing what you desire to do. Link up with that person, be an under shepherd of that person, follow that person. And what I found is it's not easy finding that person, but that person who's seeking after that person, who's diligent in finding that person and sitting under that person 4, 6, 3 months, 6 months, whatever, that shows their commitment on really wanting to start a business. And it's really, it makes sense because you may get under this business owner and find that this is not what God has called you to do. But you have done your due diligence. You sought out that leadership, and even in that under shepherd role, watching this person, you may find out that this may not be what you want to do, but God has shifted you to something different.
Sure.
But what I found is that if that person is not excited about doing that, I don't know how committed he will be or she will be in actually starting his or her own business.
Or sticking with it.
And also, I offer mentorship and say, hey, you want to find that business owner who's doing what you desire to do, but also I want to come alongside and mentor you on what you need to do mentally to prepare you to be a servant leader, not a leader, a servant leader, because again, you're constantly giving and serving some people.
Brother John, you tapped into something there as you so eloquently are explaining what you do. The idea of passion, and I think a lot of people neglect their true passion when they start to grapple with notions of being entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
You need to. I believe a person needs to. Even in my field, there's a group of there are pastors who are seeking to be pastors. Some of which because they want to be in charge. They like to be the lead. You have to have a passion and a desire to do this. Can you guys talk a little bit about how the role of passion in being an entrepreneur?
I'm just going to jump in this because right now, in this industry that I'm in, I employ just a level of staff that there's a lot of turnover, just being quite frank.
Okay.
And my passion illuminates when I have to put on my office pride shirt, put my Chuck Taylors on, and go out and clean this building at 1 o'clock in the morning because this person I entrusted basically just quit on me at 12:35 in the morning. My passion for my business when I have to get up with excitement and still go serve that customer and do it with due diligence, excitement, excellence, and in the meantime be committed to getting someone up in that role to commit to stay committed to that customer. So that's where my passion really illuminates itself. If I didn't have that passion at that very moment, I'm not in the business.
Right.
I shouldn't be in the business, put it that way. And that happens quite frequently. Yes, it's hard, but I realize that in those hard, grinding moments, we all can attest to this. This is when God is really shaping us and molding us in those moments.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm in that right now. I may have to go clean when we leave. And that's okay.
I would absolutely concur. I think passion is contagious. I think people can feel when you have just a deep level of commitment. And it doesn't always mean you're excited or that you're just always like smiling, but it does mean that you are committed. There is a burning desire in you to share what God has gifted you in. And I think anybody who knows me would say, I'm passionate about training, breaking things down to build people up is something that just energizes me. And you can see that, and it's something I love to do. And because of that, the Lord has blessed me with the opportunity to do that over and over and over, and actually, be able to help, provide for our family in doing it. But without that, I would still be passionate about it. And I think that's what sustains you. That's the fuel that sustains us over time. I mean, clearly Christ was passionate about, his journey on earth and allowing us to have a relationship with his Father. And that passion took him all the way to the cross willingly to serve. And I think that is the role that passion can play in our businesses, in our homes, in our marriages, is just that it becomes not about us, but about, the end goal, which is to serve and to serve Christ and to serve God well. You got to have a passion in what you're doing to get through those 12:35 in the morning cleanings or the things that just seem to sometimes drain you. So I just think it's hard to put, a value on the level of the role that passion can play in your business.
I'm telling you, preacher's got a wife that's helping him close.
So we've got about 5 minutes left. And our focus, of course, is to kind of leave our audience with the last words from you guys.
Oh, sure.
So, and this is just the first week of 2 weeks. So see, you get to come back again and kind of exercise some more of that passion. But this is our interest here at the end of the program. What do you want to leave the audience with as we take off here today?
Yeah, okay. I would just say, and I think hopefully it's been evident in all that we've talked about, that that God is worthy, that He is sovereign, that He is good, and just to trust Him, to walk in faith, to be, open vessels in whatever it is that is your area that you are in life, whether you're going to be starting a business or you're, working for someone and, just trying to provide for your family, just trusting God for the moment that He has you in life, and then to, go from there. But just that He's so worthy of that, and He knows so much better than we know what is right for us and what is good for us, and how we can actually bloom in the place that we're planted. And just say, listen to His voice and seek Him in your business and in all that you do, and be that light, that light in that darkness. And we know there's a lot of darkness out there, and just continue to do that and trust God to use you wherever you are.
Yeah, I think, again, guys, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's
I'm
been a
honored, man.
huge
I'm
blessing,
excited.
and we're so excited to be
I'm
here.
excited for you guys.
I think for us, for me, it's the Bible is clear. It's about one story. It's about Jesus reconciling His people back to Him. And as a business owner, I'm just grateful that He has created an opportunity for me to be about the kingdom purpose. That we serve a holy God. As a business owner, I serve a holy God to do things with excellence and integrity and with high level of purpose. I also believe that God is faithful in those 12:35 a.m. nights, that He will sustain you to get you through that. And God is a loving God. His mercy goes before us day in and day out. So even though I may be short-staffed today, God is a loving God to provide the right resources and right connections that I may be fully staffed tomorrow afternoon. But more so than that, there's a sovereign God. God has called us as business owners for such a time like this. So my ultimate purpose in this sovereign God who has called us, is that He will be glorified in all that we do. And we're excited to be in this position, this season of our life, to be a blessing to our children, to make a difference in our community, to make a difference in our community as a whole, as Indianapolis, as well as the United States. Wherever God has called us, we want to continue to make a difference for His glory. We're excited about it.
Well, I don't know that it could go any better than what it's gone today. Dr. Clyde, thank you so much for being with us here today.
My pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, man.
My pleasure, my friend. I've been blessed.
It has been a great time.
Blessed.
Yeah.
And eyes have not seen nor ear heard what God has planned for the dear. I mean that if I don't get to see it on earth, I have to see it from glory. He's going to do some amazing things with the spirit of this team. There's one spirit in these two. Absolutely.
So good seeing you too, man.
Absolutely.
And for my part, I will say this. I honestly think that at some point in the future that you will be the new YouTube phenoms and teaching and training and being the next gen leaders throughout Indianapolis as well as the world. You've been listening to Warp and Woof Radio, RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site. We come to you every Wednesday from 10 until noon. And next Wednesday, you get to see these two again. How about that? That's pretty cool. And I'm juiced about it just because it's been such a great broadcast here today, as it is every week. Dr. Clyde, thank you so much, my friend.
My friend, always a pleasure.
It is a wonder to be with you. I just, I love so much hearing all the stories you have to tell. So with that, we'll sign off for today. Thanks so much for watching us and listening to us, and we'll return next week.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys. Thanks, man.
Thank
Thank you so much, man.
Great job.
Thank
Blessed
you.
to see you, man.
Absolutely.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you. God is certainly has and is. I'm telling you, man.
Thanks for
That's
watching,
fantastic.
everybody. We're out.
That is fantastic.
Right.
It's just not leaving me alone.
I don't even want to see how many text messages and voicemails I have now.
There it is, right there.
I know.
It's the
Whole
constant.
page.
You couldn't find me on Facebook because I'm not on Facebook.
Okay.
I figured.
I'm on LinkedIn, so
Okay.
I've been trying to. At one point, I kind of pulled myself away from Facebook because it was a little bit of wasting of my time.
Of course. Yeah.
But now that things are starting to.
I'm about to do it.
it.